Oh, hi, Mark. All right, I just watched a film called Deadstream. Deadstream is a 2022 horror film that was released just this month, I believe. Um, and it's on Shutter. It's a Shutter original. And Deadstream is about this man child of an influencer who got himself into some hot water. Um, he did some stunts that he shouldn't have done, and he ended up hurting some people by accident, and so he got into some hot water. He made an apology video, made himself monetizable again, and now he is doing a haunted house stream. And this whole time, he's an entertaining character to be around because he is playing it up for the audience. The audience obviously is us in the real world, but in movie world, it's like an actual audience, and there's like text on the side of the screen where it's like people are talking like it's a real live stream, which is something I really appreciate in these kinds of movies. Spree had that same thing going on there, except Spree wasn't as good. Spree is nowhere near as cool as this movie. Um, the one critique that I think I can really give this movie, because I can't really criticize the main guy, even though the main guy is pretty insufferable. Um, and I think he's supposed to be because he's an influencer, and I think he's just supposed to be one of those douchebag influencers who's trying to redeem himself, and he does kind of end up redeeming himself at the end of the day. But the biggest critique I can give to this movie is that it takes a while to start up. It takes a while to get going. At first, it's very like just pretty much any abandoned place exploration that you'll find on YouTube or that you'll find on like the Discovery Channel, with the Ghost Hunters show or Ghost Adventures, whatever. And it it was kind of it was honestly it was getting kind of cringy because I was sitting there thinking to myself, is this going to be the whole movie? And thankfully it was not. What I wasn't expecting, I was expecting this to go in a slightly more serious found footage way once he figured out what was going on and that there was something going on. I was expecting almost an as above so below sort of thing. Not quite as serious probably because of the character we're following. But what pleasantly surprised me is that this is not a serious film. This is a horror comedy, a found footage horror comedy, which is really hard to pull off, which is why I imagine there aren't very many of them. Found footage horror comedy is a very niche subgenre that doesn't, to my knowledge, didn't really exist until now, other than maybe Spree, if you count that. I don't really like, yeah, I don't know. I don't really like the movie Spree. I didn't find it really funny. But yeah, Deadstream was awesome. It is essentially the comparison I make. It's like Evil Dead 2, but found footage and about influencers. That's the best endorsement I can give this movie. It's found footage Evil Dead 2 with influencers. That's my box art quote type thing. uh Yeah, it had actually good practical effects in it, which is really strange. There were some that weren't so good, like how the ghost looked. I think she looked pretty corny, honestly. But that's okay because again, it was Evil Deadish. I mean, it really was. He had all these one-liners, and there were all these kind of corny like rubber suits that some of the ghosts would wear. Like there was this one that was supposed to look like a bloated corpse, and it was just made of a rubber suit, and it was all really cool. I liked the practical effects in this movie. There are some parts with genuine tension. Um, at first when stuff's happening, I think I even jumped a couple times, which doesn't happen very often. And it's a really interesting balance to strike when you have a film that wants to be a horror comedy, but also a film that wants to have a couple of spooky moments. A couple of creepy moments. And this movie does both actually very well. It is mostly a horror comedy, more so than like, oh, this is creepy. But there are a few moments where it's like, oh, that's kind of giving me the willies. And another thing this movie does great is gross out. There's actually some gross out humor in there too, which I loved. There's a scene where, without giving anything away, something pops, something gross, and it gets in someone's face, and they just sit there like they were all triumphant and happy, and they just like it pops, something pops, and it gets all over their face, and they just stop. They're just staring ahead. so so disgusted and defeated that something just got its pus and nastiness all over their face. Uh that scene cracked me up. But there are a few scenes in here like that they really do crack me up. This is a funny movie. It's kind of a creepy movie. I think it strikes that balance wonderfully. I think it strikes that balance better than a lot of horror comedies that have been coming out recently. There are some movies that kind of have, I don't want to say identity crises. I don't know. But I don't want to say they have like an identity crisis. But like the biggest issue that I have with horror movies right now, oh, well, one of them, I shouldn't say the biggest. One of the biggest issues I have with horror movies right now is that they all feel like they think they need to be funny, even the very serious ones. And recently I've been praising Halloween 2018 because Halloween Ends just came out, and I hated that movie. But I've been praising Halloween 2018 a lot because I love that movie, and I do love that movie, but there are some parts in it where it's needlessly comedic, and it's like you could have not done that, because otherwise this is a very serious movie. Like when little Julian runs out and he's like, "You're gonna die, Tim," or whatever the guy's name was. He's like, "You're gonna die," and he was running out, or the "oh shit" that he does. It's all comedic in there, and like that movie's not a horror comedy, that's just a horror film. This, on the other hand, it knew what it was, and it played up what it was very well. And seriously, guys, I'm kind of sort of head over heels for this movie, which is not what I was feeling at first. I was like, man, this movie's gonna be like a 6 at best. But at the end of the day, guys, I really enjoyed it. I found myself having a way better time than I thought I would, especially because I was just like scrolling Shutter, and I was like, all right, well, this is new. I guess I'll give this piece of shit a watch. And I watched it. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. Well, see, I'm a jackass. And so at the end of the day, I think this movie ends up being an 8. As I was saying, I think this movie ends up being an 8. God, I hate the doors in this house. God, I hate the doors in this house. The friggin' door to my bedroom just keeps creaking open ever so slightly more, and it's because I have 2 fans going on in there and a window open. I should have closed that door. That freaked me out for a second. Anyway, 8 out of 10. Again, even when it started getting a little better, I was like, no way this is higher than a 7, right? It's like, no way this is higher than a 7.5, right? No, no, this is an 8. This is an 8, baby. It might even be an 8.5. I don't know. This is good. This is a good movie. Seriously, watch it. If you like The Evil Dead and you're interested in seeing what like an Evil Dead movie in found footage form would look like, but about influencers, watch this movie. Uh, oh, also there's some like plot twists in there, if you can call it plot twists, that are pretty hilarious. So, uh, yeah, that's Deadstream. Also, unrelated note, if you if you have an interest in watching, I only thought of this because I said something about The Evil Dead, but Here Comes Hell is another movie that's like The Evil Dead, but it's like The Evil Dead if it was in black and white and it took place in like a mansion in the 1930s. Just figured I'd throw that out there. I think that's on Tubi TV, but Here Comes Hell is another cool one. But anyway, Deadstream 8.0. Hasta luego.